There was a recent story about the PS5 being the fastest selling console of all time. And while that's great, congratulations, Sony, it was just driving me nuts for some reason. So I dove in. I wanted to think about how does this compare to how Microsoft's doing, how the Xbox is doing, and what other context are we missing? Because it was like second place for February, but it's fastest selling overall. Anyway, here's what I found. Let's dive right in. All right, so yeah, it's the fastest selling console of all time, and Sony deserves credit where credit is due. Congrats. But let me talk a little bit about why I think the story it's a little weird. I don't think there is the larger context being considered about what this story means overall in terms of where the consoles are at currently. So first of all, this is only over 4 months. It's still second place after Nintendo. The Nintendo Switch just sells like crazy every month. It was still the #1 selling console for February. So this is over 4 months. This is the fastest selling device of all time. That's ranked by total dollar sales. And we weren't told what this was in PS5 sales specifically. It sounds like 4.5 million units in 2020, I think. Still outsold by Switch, and Xbox doesn't talk about hardware sales, so we have no idea how it's pacing. So when I started thinking about this, I was really reminded of what Phil said to The Guardian, Keza McDonald. Keza, miss you. But he had this interview with Keza McDonald right around the time console launches were happening, and I want to talk about what he said here. He said, I think the people who want to pit us against Sony based on who sold the most consoles lose the context of what gaming is about today. There are 3 billion people who play games on the planet today, but only maybe 200 million households that have a video game console. In a way, the console space is becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the overall gaming pie. He continues, I think that diversity of business model is one of the key differences between what we're trying to do and what happened in music, where everything shifted all at once. If you remember, the music market quickly went digital as opposed to physical. And ways that Xbox are doing that include Game Pass, mobile cloud gaming, the console market, and the PC market. And finally, Phil Spencer said, I don't want my team's focus on console sales. The primary outcome of all the work that we do is how many players we see and how often they play. That is what drives Xbox. If I start to highlight something else, both publicly and internally, it changes our focus. Things that lack backwards compatibility become less interesting. Putting our games on PC becomes a reason that somebody doesn't have to go and buy an Xbox Series X. I'll hold fast to this. We publicly disclose player numbers. That's the thing I want us to be driven by, not how many individual pieces of plastic we sell. And recently we found out, and I just feel like I'm just going to be saying the same thing when I make these videos, 18 million Game Pass players. Who cares where they play? The market has shifted. And who sells the most consoles? It's important. It is an important piece of the puzzle. But Xbox has diversified their portfolio, and Sony is largely all in and slowly diversifying their portfolio by releasing their games on PC, which a lot of their own fans don't like the fact that their games are coming to PC, which is insane because it helps Sony at the end of the day. There's a few other statistics I want to talk about. So first of all, COVID spiked hardware sales by 121% year over year. Nintendo, again, is still king. Nintendo's always going to win. Nintendo just does this thing where they think outside the box, they find a niche, and they really, really go for it. And I think Xbox looked at that, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We're not going to play the pieces of plastic game anymore. That quote was everywhere when it was said back in November or whenever Phil originally said it. Remember this. So yes, hardware sales are 121% year over year. We didn't have a new console last year. Xbox Series X and PS5 and Series S, they all came out this year. And 1 month ago, it was being reported that sales are on the same pace as they were last gen, which honestly, that should be a little scary to both companies. So other considerations from Ampere Data. There is a console chip shortage for both parties. That means they can't even make the consoles fast enough to meet demand. And that means they're going to struggle to surpass where they were at with previous generations of hardware. Here's some Xbox numbers. The Xbox Series X and S According to Ampere, was 2.8 million units in February 2021. The Xbox One in the same window of time did about 2.9 million units. The PS5, 4.5 million units. The PS4 did 4.2 million units. So that's a difference of about 300,000 in sales. All hardware, and they don't differentiate here, which is why the data is a little murky. All hardware did 9.3 billion in 2021. And in Japan specifically, the PS5 outsells the Xbox 4-1 in Japan. And if you check out my previous video where I talk about that Bethesda merger with Xbox and why that is going to be so important for the Xbox brand, that is one of the markets that they are targeting. Now, I know this all seems like a little bit, it's always sunny, but I am going somewhere with it. So please just bear with me. And here's what we do know about the Xbox Series X and S sales. On day one, they sold more consoles than ever before. The Series S also added more new players than any other console before for Xbox. So let's look at some historical data to sort of figure out where that puts them. So from November to December, we know the Xbox One did 3 million units. That was November to December. The Xbox 360 did 1.5 million units. November to December. The Xbox did 1.5 million units also. And if you remember the 360, I think at the time the 360 was like the hot console that we all thought was going to win. But over a longer period of time, the PS3, over the entire life, the entire 10 years of those consoles, the PS3 eventually outsold it. And I truly think that we're going to see a little bit of a few things. We're going to see a few things changing with how the data is interpreted. First of all, digital sales are more important than physical sales. Because Xbox has billions of homes that they can market to with the PC market and the fact that they have Game Pass, they don't care about console sales as much. It is important to them, but not as much. And yeah, so this is really, really good for Sony. Sony is playing the game of, I want to make great first-party titles. They're knocking it out of the park. They are knocking the console game out of the park. But I wanted to sort of talk about the ecosystem that we're in, how it has shifted, and how, yes, PS5 has broken a record number of sales for consoles. But again, I feel like I'm just going to keep saying the same thing on this channel, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record. That is an old game. That is not the only piece of the puzzle that we should be considering in the console market today. So congrats, Sony. I hope you continue to diversify your portfolio, because that's going to make my experience with the PS5 even better than it already is. And I think Xbox is just knocking it out of the park, and they are setting up those dominoes to knock them all over and just knock it out of the park later on. So a little bit ranty. I don't really know what my point is. My point basically was, I think that there is a larger picture going on than I think people are considering. All of these victories have larger context to them. And I hope that we're all sort of thinking about that, as gaming is important to all of us, right? And how each company does what they're going to do is great. And each is playing a different game where they're both being successful. So congratulations to both parties. Little bit of a ranty video, I realize. But anyway, you guys have been so supportive. Thank you so much. If you do like these videos, please hit that subscribe button. I did a call out, and wow, a lot of you subscribed. So thank you. And I hope you're enjoying these. I'm going to keep making them if you keep watching, even if they're ranty. But anyway, that's it for this one. And that's Destin signing off. I'm Destin signing off. What a weird outro. Bye, everybody.